Good afternoon. First thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about this machine. It's a RCBS Green Mmachine, and it is set up for 357 right now. That's 357 Magnum, or with just die and powder adjustments you can load 38 specials. So this is one of the original machines that RCBS made in their progressive loader. It's an inline loader, loads left to right, and works very well. It's for rim cartridges, of course. And the only thing I can tell you that it's been a little bit of modification done, but not much. So while we're way back from the actual machine, and I'm apologizing for my ability to do videos and my camera, but if you see the blue bowl up on top, this was added in the original cassette that held 5 cartridge tubes where you loaded them by hand one at a time, and then when it ran out you had to make sure it was totally out, because when you tried to rotate it, if you didn't, it got hung up here. But anyway, you simply throw a small handful of cartridges in it, and when you shake it you can see them falling down. So all you have to do is stay ahead of whatever your bullet production is. Just throw a handful in there once in a while, and when you receive the press, the bowl and this feed tube will be removed, and they simply screw right out. And when you get it, simply push it all the way back down till it bottoms out, and then reinstall the bowl on top. Now I will say one thing about this bowl, and I'm not sure you can see it or not, but the bowl you really want does not have this flat spot in the bottom. And Melmac used to make them by the thousands, but they're really hard to find. So if you get this unit, I suggest you find a bowl and you simply drill a hole in the bottom, and you can go about the size I have here, and put a bowl on there that has sharper angle. To reinstall it, simply set it back on, drop your cases in, and off you go again. Now the other thing that has been modified, and this I think I can zoom in a little bit, is the original primer feeder was a terrible design, and if anything gives you a problem on this press, the primer feeder would. This is simply a Dillon primer pickup tube, and you can see in the background here I've got a bunch of them. You simply take an original tube, put it in, there's one set screw that holds it, and that's it. Now I did put this little plastic piece on top, so when you run out of primers, you pull this follower rod out, then you pick up your primers as normal with a regular Dillon, and I'm going to include a pickup tube like this, as well as the one that's mounted. It will be mounted to the press and adjusted. So you pick up your primers, set it up on here like so, push it into this plastic, pull this hairpin cutter key out, and the primers will fall down. It will hold about 102 or 3 primers. Then put the follower rod back in, and you don't really need it, but it does make sure that the primers feed properly. And also, you can't see it very well, but on top there's a 357 bullet, because I had 8 of these presses mounted on this Lazy Susan turntable here, and you always wanted to make sure you had the right press. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here. All right, in the back here, it's very hard to see from this angle, but there's a powder rotor, and of course you fill your powder hopper here. Right now this is loaded up with unique. So this dispenses 5.1 grains of unique. Not a real hot load for a 3.7, but very nice for punching holes in targets. There's two pins back here. When you start loading, you have to engage them, and that's what cams the powder rotor. And this is impossible with this machine, the best I've ever found, to double charge a case. So with the unique rotor setup that they have, if you don't turn all the way, so you're in the process and you run your press head down, okay, when you get down so far, it will not dispense powder until it is almost into the case mouth. One other slight modification is this Allen-headed set screw right here. If you want to do like I do, what I do is what I call tension the head. And what I mean by that is when you pull this unit down and the head is down in the lowermost position, the front of this head is resting on top of this Allen-headed cap screw. And what it does, it puts the press in a tiny little bit of a bind, and it makes sure that this head always stops at exactly the same place. So it has a stop in the back and it has a stop in the front, thereby giving you very, very uniform cartridge lengths. Right, so a quick run through before you ever start loading. Of course, make sure your work area is clean. Make sure you have the right primers, you have the right cases, the right bullets. And you simply start like I showed you before. Take a small handful of cases, throw them in the case feeder, and the first time it takes just a little bit of a time to fill it. So now you can see that it is totally full and you're ready to go. Also, make sure, take the cap off, fill your powder to the top. Always check this thing. Check about every 100 to 150 rounds. Check it every time you fill the primer feed. Okay, and we already showed you how to fill the primers. So now you've got powder, you have primers, and you have cases. Now I'm going to try to get this camera to where you can see what's happening. Very poor lighting in here, and my arms and everything else would be in the way, but we'll see what happens. Okay, well, I'm bound determined to try to get something you can see what's happening here. So anyway, here we'll go again. So don't forget, all 4 stations are now in service. This one just did a crimp. This one seated the bullet. This one dropped the powder. This one decapped and sized the old case. So now with every pull of the handle, you're going to get a loaded round. And there's lots of claims out there on how fast you can load and all that, but, you know, take your time. You're not out to race. Now what I do is when I run out. Alright, the machine's set up, ready to go. We're back again once we've got full cartridge feed. Primers, I'm not going to load them totally up and put 100 in where I have to run that many, but you've seen me add the primers. Powder's full, so don't forget the powder rotor's not engaged. We don't want it engaged yet, so we're going to do the first stroke brings in the first empty cartridge into station 1. The second pull sizes and deprimes it. Now we need to engage the powder rotor. Alright, that pull of the lever expanded the mouth of the case, put powder in it. This one is come over from the first station, had a new primer seated in the bottom, and this one of course sizes it. See if I can get around the lights and stuff here. Okay, we put a bullet in the third station and it pre-seated it, and now all you have to do is pull the lever and feed a bullet. So off we go. This is about the speed that I load. I've become a little bit fumble-fingered, so, but I'm sure you'll make a lot better speed out of this than I do. I always stop with the press head down, throw a few more cartridges in here, take the bowl, and down they come, and you're off and running again. Well, that's all there is to it. Thanks for watching. Okay, here we are about 10 minutes later, I guess. And probably not a very good picture, but at least I got the lights and stuff out of the way to where I can actually operate the machine. And as you see, you can rattle right along with the thing. Just make sure to keep an eye on your powder, your primers, and your cases. And back we go. Now you can buy a Dillon case feeder, and I've got one that I've had hooked up to all these different presses, and all of this equipment's on a Lazy Susan that you can rotate around and use the same case feeder for all the calibers. It does away with one more step that you have to do by hand, and that's of course dump the empty cartridges in the bowl on the top and shake it and etc. But you know, it's a lot of money to spend, so anyway, there you go. We'll stop for now.